Okay, welcome to everyone here and there to the first small firm forum of 2023. So today we have our annual show and tell. In the note announcement, I mentioned that we may have a plan A or plan B because one of the presenters is under the weather and is probably not going to be able to make it. So in the first part of the meeting, we'll hear from Andrew and see his beautiful work. And then we'll kind of open it up to a discussion amongst ourselves, sharing some of our experiences, generally speaking on the idea related to presenting ourselves, how we learned how to do it, what we learned not to do, and that sort of thing. But first, I'd like to go around the room. First, we'll do it in the room, and then we'll do it in someplace, and let everybody say who they are, where they do it, and what they do. So to start, I'm Donald Wardlaw, and I'm an architect in Oakland, California. Let's go talk with Andrew. Yeah.
I'm Andrew Lee, and I'm an architect, and my office is in Berkeley.
Hi, I'm Sydney Oakham. I'm the programs manager for AIA East Bay.
I'm Robert Higginbotham, retired architect and I practice here in Oakland.
I'm Jay Castle. I have a small practice measurement organization based in.
I'm Helen Gillette. I've been retired for 20 years and I used to be very active in the East Bay area.
I'm John Gillette, architect. And I think I've been retired longer than Ellen.
So here we are, catching up.
I'm Rose Douglas. I'm in Berkeley, healthy homes and ecological gardens.
Hi everyone, I'm Kwam Tran. I'm a first year MArch student at CPA in the city. My name's Cliff Master. I'm an architect here in Berkeley that just semi-retired as a healthcare architect at Stanford University.
Claudia?
Hi, I'm Claudia Falconer. I'm an architect in Oakland.
And on the screen. Do they see it in the same order, or do you want to pull them out?
I can use your best to call them. Do you want to?
I can't see all the names from here. Okay. If I mispronounce your name, I'm sorry. First, we have New Sue.
Hello. Oh, I'm Ray too. Hello. I'm an architect and work in the office in Berkeley. Did you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
And it's hard for me to read this. Can you do this?
Bennett?
Hi there, my name's Bennett. I'm an architect in El Cerrito, and I do freelance support for busy residential firms.
Mercedes? But you're muted, Mercedes. Thanks. No? Oh, very quiet. Okay, we'll come back to you. George?
My name is George Horton. I'm an architect in Oakland, and I do residential additions, remodels, ADUs, single family residence complete if I can get that, but that's pretty rare.
Rachel? You're muted, Rachel.
Oh, sorry. What are we doing?
Just introductions.
Oh, hi. I'm Rachel Slonicky. I'm an architect in Berkeley. Looking forward to Andrew's discussion. Sorry, I'm very sick.
Oh, take care of yourself. Carol?
Carol? I'm an architect in Berkeley that's 99% retired, and I enjoy helping friends who need help or find them help, either way. And I really enjoy the small firm forum. And Donald, thank you for fixing the link, because I spent the first 5 minutes leaving messages at AIA trying to get it to the ID to work. Thanks.
Mercedes, are you ready for us?
Yes. Hi. As long as you can hear me, I think I have a problem with my built-in mic. Nice to see everyone. And I'm an architect based in Oakland in the Fruitvale area. I'm looking forward to Andy's presentation, and a shout out to Donald and Rachel and Linda Randolph. I'm not sure if she's on today, for all your work on the committee. Thank you.
I don't know who's there under diagram architecture, but if you'd like to say hi.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Viet Trong. I've started my, I have a small architectural practice, diagram architecture, in Oakland. I'm also a licensed general contractor. And so recently we've been developing and building our projects. So looking forward to hearing from Andrew and sharing his experience.
And I believe last but not least, Linda, you want to say hi?
Linda Randolph, I'm sick.
It's going around.
Co-host for quite a few years, but hanging in there.
Seems like Zach keeps joining and dropping off. Zach, I don't know if you're, here with us, if you want to say hi.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, I'm an architectural designer in Berkeley.
Welcome.
Hi.
Before we get into things, a couple things. One, Rebecca, who was to present today, is too under the weather to do that. So we're going to have Andrew's presentation, and then we're going to open it up to a group discussion, generally speaking, around the ideas of how we present ourselves, how we learn to do that, and what we never do again. But before that, we can go around the room for announcements, and I'll start first. And the first one that I want to mention is this. Linda and Rachel and I are sort of the coordinators for this group. And we don't really get too involved in the topics and what people say, but we just help to make sure that the things we need to get done on time get done on time. And generally speaking, each one of us does 4 months. And in my calculation, it differs a little bit from month to month and person to person, but it's about an hour per month. And what we're doing is we're looking to get a 4th person on so that we'd be each doing 3 months each. And the reason for that is this. The small firm forum, which has been around for 30 years, has always kind of derived its fuel from people in the small firm forum pitching in to make it happen. And Linda is close to retirement, but can't quite break herself away from the small firm forum. And I'm trying to retire, but it's going to take me 2 years to finish the current project. So what we want to do is we want to be able to have a functional transition. When somebody moves on, that somebody else is there to take over and join. And I'll just add that I have always seen the work that I've done for the small firm forum as just a kind of a personal community service, because I felt a strong feeling of community from all the people who are doing this kind of work that I'm doing. I've learned so much from everybody in the small firm forum, so I give a little bit back. So there is that thing open. If anybody wants to volunteer to be that first person, they should get in touch with me or Linda or Rachel, and we'll work it out with you. And having said that, I'll just turn it open in case there's anyone else in the group that has an announcement that they would like to share with the group. Raise your hand if you want to do that. No one down here? No one up there? Okay, with that, now we'll listen to Andrew Lee share his wonderful experiences with his work with all of us. Andrew, welcome.
Great, thanks, Donald. I'm gonna share my screen. See if I can manipulate all the tech here. Maybe not. Okay, great. So hi everyone. Nice to see everyone here and in Zoom. I'm Andrew Lee, and happy to be here to talk about my work a little bit with you all. When Donald asked me to present today, my mind immediately went to sort of like the big questions of why I do what I do. I thought about maybe showing you some things from earlier in my life that kind of led me to be an architect, showing some buildings that I love and that inspire me, thinking about things like, you know, what exactly am I selling as an architect? These are all questions that I think of quite often, but I was having a hard time shaping them into a presentation. So I kind of bailed on that idea. And I just decided to show you a couple of projects that I have on my desk right now. And what I'm hoping is that some of those bigger topics will emerge as I talk about these projects. And it's just easier to organize. It kind of organizes itself. There's a lot of visuals, drawings, and photographs. And I always find it interesting to hear about what people are working on. So I hope you all feel the same way. And feel free to ask questions as I show slides. You don't have to hold them. We'll just kind of keep it loose. So I'm going to show two projects. Well, it's not good.
You provide music with your presentation?
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to show two projects. One is in Berkeley, sort of above the Rose Garden, and one is in Oakland, above Mountain View Cemetery. They both came to me through my website. I have a contact page on my website, and that's how I get at least half of my work nowadays. So I'm happy that my website's doing what it's supposed to do. They are both at about the same stage. They're both what I think of as sort of the middle of design development. I've gone through some rounds of design and revisions with the clients, and we're now ready to show drawings to engineers for structural design and to builders for pricing. And the Oakland project is actually ready to submit it for planning review. So with that, I'll just kind of start looking at the visuals. This is the first project. This is in Berkeley. This is Campus Drive right here. This is Campus Drive. I keep thinking I should look at the cross street there, but in any case, this is above the Rose Garden. It's this kind of small, one-story, flat-roofed home with quite a dramatic upslope from the street. In fact, there's stairs coming up from the street up to the front yard, and then it continues sloping up to the backyard. And this photograph, I realized, was taken before my clients put a little prefab studio building at the top of the lot here for the husband, which I'll mention again in a little bit. So that's the house. Let's see. It's just okay. I keep an office diary, and I realized just recently that I think I may have inherited the system from Mercedes. So Mercedes might be looking at this right now thinking, hey, that's my system. This is just a Word document that I keep always open on my computer throughout the day. And I have a new document every month. So this is for January of last year. The first column is for the date. The second column is for either the project or in this case, a prospect. And then these are literally my notes from the first contact that I had with these homeowners. When people contact me on my website, I usually suggest that we have a phone call first as opposed to going out to their house, because a lot of times I just want to avoid the situation where I drive somewhere and discover it's not something I'm interested in. So these are my notes from these folks. They're a couple, kind of middle-aged. The wife is a scientist at Cal. The husband is a professional bassoonist, and they have a adopted grade school age daughter. And they actually recently relocated to the Bay Area. They came from New York City, which I thought was interesting. I like New York City, so that was kind of piqued my interest. By the end of this phone call, I was feeling like not so sure I was interested in the project. It seemed like sort of a glorified master bathroom project. And I was like, well, maybe not. But they talked about like an addition. I was having a hard time visualizing what they were talking about. So it was interesting enough for me to go out there and take a look. Let's see if I can switch this. So the photographs, this is the house. This is actually after I was already under contract with them. These are the photographs I took when I went to the house to measure it. This is the front elevation. You can see the steps coming up from the streets, front door. Picture window is in the living room, and this is the dining room here. And I'll just kind of flip through the photographs. This is the back of the house, and you can see there's quite a bit of slope right away coming up to the back of the house. This is their master bedroom with the door out from the bedroom. They just had this landscape, and they have a nice deck up here adjacent to the accessory building. Looking the other direction.
That chicken coop?
It is not a chicken coop. I think it's for, I want to say it's for their dog. That you're talking about this thing right here. No? Yeah, I think it's for their dog. I don't remember though. I don't remember. Got something in there. This is their living room. When they talked to me initially, they described the house as modest but charming. And I thought my initial reaction was like, yeah, whatever. But once I got to the house, I really kind of agreed with them. This is the kind of house I really like. It's kind of modestly scaled. This is the vintage it was built in 1949. So it's got kind of that nice mid-century / Berkeley kind of house feel to me. And I just like it. And you can see with some of the things in their house, you can see they actually have some interesting taste with some of the furniture and things, although it's not, obviously it's a very casual house. Dining room, you can see the exercise bike here in the corner. This is the second project in my practice where I've literally had clients ask me to design a space around their exercise bike. People are so into their Pelotons. So that became part of the program. Donald just got one. Initially, the kitchen was not really in the scope of work. They mentioned it in our initial conversation and said, can we talk about that for like a later phase? And I said, sure, not a problem. And rapidly it dropped into, they want to address the kitchen. And you can see, it's a pretty modest kitchen. There's a lot of doors into it, which is always an issue. And it obviously just could use some improvement. When I do kitchens, I always like to open up all the cabinets and take pictures of what's inside them. So I have a sense of what they have and what I need to find homes for. This is their master bedroom. That's my client. Her name is Ellen, by the way. She's busy working there. This is her kind of pandemic era workspace, and she actually said it works fine for her. But we did talk about the fact that, there's no separation between where she works and where they sleep. And I wanted to give her a better space to work. She likes the natural light. She likes the view to the backyard. Behind this door is a little addition that's literally about 6 feet by 6 feet, and it's their master closet. It's a walk-in closet. And a tiny little, well, it's not tiny, but it's a very awkwardly laid out laundry room. And then this is pantry closet, which is right off the kitchen. So those are my photographs of the house. These are my notes, actually. I forgot to mention, these are my notes from my site visit with them. On my first site visit, I walk around with a clipboard and I talk further and I try to jot down, the things that they're telling me. A lot of times I can't decipher them later, or I forget what they mean, but I give it a try. This is essentially my as-built plan. Probably at least somebody listening either here or via Zoom has heard me proselytize about SketchUp. I use a program called SketchUp for all my documentation, and a companion program called Layout that brings the model into 2D, so I can do working drawings, I can print things onto different formats and so on. This is the existing plan. Living room that you saw, dining room, little kitchen. I added these notes in red just to kind of supplement what's shown in the drawing. Their bedroom is a queen bed, and it's here. And I thought that's not so great because I always like to get a nightstand on both sides of the bed, and there's not enough room on this wall. So I kind of had that in mind. And this is where her work table is that you saw in the picture. Just a quick look at the SketchUp model. This is what This is a fairly developed SketchUp model, and I just thought people might be interested in seeing it. This is the existing house. And I'm fairly adept at using this program. I'm not so great at manipulating topography and volumes that represent the earth. So you can see this is this kind of read as a bunch of faceted planes here, but if I make do, you can see that you can turn shadows on and off. Here's the husband's music studio. There's a deck that they built next to it. It's quite nice. There's a kind of a raised planter bed here. And the stairs, which are not shown in the model, are here up to that higher level. So that's the model. And you can set up different views to show different things. So here's the existing floor plan. And it's basically just the model cut at kind of floor plan height. And you can tell them the program to push all the walls. Okay, so that's kind of where the starting point was. And now we just kind of launch in the design. Both. Let's see if I can. Oh, before I start showing design sketches, both projects, the clients are relatively good about thinking about what they want and responding to questions, which I often find not to be the case. So this is just a snapshot of an email thread that I had with mainly the wife, and she included some images of things that she likes. We started thinking about the kitchen, and you can see that she has some interesting tastes. You know, it's kind of mid-century modern. You know, I don't dive into this level of design right away because I still want to figure out what the plan is going to be. But it's nice to sort of have this in the back of my head as I start thinking about design. You know, some beautiful images here, which, you know, obviously I probably won't have the opportunity to do things like this, but it gives you a flavor of what they like. And she even got to the point of picking out some plumbing fixtures that she likes, which, you know, is really nice. I really appreciate when clients do that. I'm not so sure I like that fossil, but in that case. So both projects really lent themselves, both this project and if I get to it, the open project really lent themselves to attacking different parts of the program as little separate areas, and then they could be kind of mix and match. So what I'll show you first is kind of the back of the plan interventions. This first sketch is essentially what I think they had in mind when they came to me. And basically, when clients do have an idea in mind, I usually say, okay, well, let me see if that works. So you can see this is their master bedroom. This is their little exercise room with the Peloton dashed in with a light line. This would require cutting into the slope. So I showed like a little retaining wall and a path around it if they wanted to maintain a connection between the backyard and the side yard. It takes advantage of an opening in the wall that's here already for a window and just turns it into a person door with a walk-in closet here. And then what I think is a fairly, you know, it's a very typical bathroom layout, but I think it works well. The downside is that it isolates the existing bathroom. So we'd have to fill in this window, but you know, so be it. So that was the first scheme. I always show at least 2 or 3 schemes initially when, you know, I find, you know, 9 times out of 10, there's at least a couple solutions to what people are asking for. So usually there's at least 3 different schemes or 2 schemes and a variation. Let's see. So the variation on this is this diagram, which basically moves the opening into the addition over to here. And it attacks that problem that I mentioned before, which is I think it's kind of a bummer to have the bed against this wall because it's sort of right when you walk in the door. And I feel like this is a better layout. And you just punch an opening in this wall, you have a little vestibule here and walk-in closet on this side. master bath on this side, same plan for the gym. Somewhere in the process, they emailed me or called me and said, you know, Andrew, we think we want the gym to be bigger. And I said, okay, let's do that. So I drew this sketch, which basically shows the addition going farther into the hill. I gave up on the idea of maintaining a path around it because by the time you get to this point, you're 6 or 7 feet above the level of the floor here. And it would I just felt like that's going to be an exorbitant concrete retaining wall. I also had an idea of providing some kind of separation here if her office function remains in this little zone here. So I thought, oh, you can create a little pocket with some sliding doors that could be translucent to let light through, but it gives a little bit of visual break between, you know, their sleeping area and her office. I always try to do at least one scheme that is, you know, I mean, I guess you could say thinking out of the box or just getting away from what the assumption is of what the solution is. So it occurred to me at some point that it would be relatively easy to repurpose this bathroom and make it basically the ensuite bathroom just by changing the entry sequence. So this sketch shows the hallway here moving to here and the entry into the master suite happening here, and then you're capturing the bathroom. Basically wouldn't have to do anything to the bathroom if you didn't want to, and then creating a kind of a standard 5-foot wide bathroom here for their daughter and for, you know, for guests. And you'd probably want to add onto her bedroom just because it would become a very small room if you didn't. So I don't know if this is really it's not really a cost savings, I don't think. It's more just a different way to do the plan. So those were the first passes through the back of the house. Through the kitchen. A lot of times the first scheme I show will be kind of the cheapest option. You know, what can they do for like the smallest amount of cost? And in this case, I just wanted to you know, work with this footprint. And I thought, well, I'm going to close off one of these openings to give them more of a functional plan. So that closes off the opening to the living room, but it maintains like maybe a little pass-through window, so you have a visual connection. But otherwise, it gives you a kind of a U-shaped plan, a functional U-shaped plan. You can open up this wall opening from here to here, and it becomes like an open, kind of a casual open relationship between the kitchen and the dining room. But otherwise, the work triangle is essentially the same. You know, you have sink, range, refrigerator. Same thing here, sink, range, refrigerator. And then I show some ideas for the pantry in the next sketches. I rapidly thought, well, if we're going to be doing an addition here, why not just continue the addition into the kitchen? In my experience, if you add just a couple feet to a kitchen, it makes a big difference in terms of the feel of the room. Even a couple extra feet of countertop makes a big difference. So I bumped out this little kind of hatched area. Again, it keeps the same work triangle. I gave them back the opening into the living room, but it just gives them a little bit more space. This could be kind of open from here to here for a nicer visual connection. And then because it's such a casual house, I thought it wasn't a big deal to cut an opening in the dining room wall here and have this volume be 2 separate little rooms, one for the washer dryer and one for like a little pantry area for the kitchen. And you still have the door out to the side yard. This is another variation. And the big change here is that I just changed the work triangle. I moved the sink to the peninsula, and the range and the refrigerator are here. This can just become like an extra counter space with like a view out. You know, maybe it's a place for, you know, morning coffee or something like that. Somewhat of a different configuration for the laundry rooms. but same idea. And then I did one kind of quote unquote out of the box idea, which is flipping the kitchen and the dining room. And it's fairly easy to do. After I drew this, I realized, well, I'm not sure really what this gets you. I think it's really just, it's just reversing the two spaces. You do have an opportunity for maybe like a little bit of a nice inside outside feel here with like a little pair of French doors from the dining room. But otherwise, I don't know if this was, if it really added that much. And I found a lot of times when you propose moving a kitchen, it's almost too much for people to process, and they would kind of reject it without even really being able to think about it. I always like to include a little table like this whenever I do a kitchen, and this is a comparison of the functionality of the existing condition, base cabinets, counter space, upper cabinets, and the different schemes that I'm presenting. So like they can have a little bit of a sense of what am I gaining functionally from these different schemes? Am I getting a lot more counter space? Am I getting a lot more wall cabinets, et cetera? It's not exact because how do you count like a base cabinet in a corner? It's kind of hard to reach. Is that a full cabinet and so on? But it gives them a sense. And then I had a couple more out of the box ideas for her office. I realized that you could actually do a little addition here. There's not a whole lot to be lost by blocking this wall. This is where the washer dryer is currently. There's little windows, but like it's not important. And it seemed to me like this kind of gets her office away from her bedroom. She no longer has a backyard view, but now she has a view of the bay. This is facing west. She can put her standing height desk there. Technically, this is not a legal room, but in my experience, if the opening is wide enough between this space and the dining room, the plan checkers won't give me a hard time about it. And then the other out of the box idea I had was this, which is doing a little addition off the living room. And this preserves most of their view from the living room through this big picture window. And this could be her office, or it's big enough to be an exercise room. It's actually a legal room, I think. So, those are a couple ideas that I threw at them. And I think they appreciated seeing those ideas. Okay. Where are we? So those were essentially my first pass at schematic design. We went through some conversation. I think they liked a lot of things that I showed them. They pretty much rejected the idea of the hall bath that took over part of their daughter's room. They didn't like this image here. Well, they didn't. I don't think it's that they didn't like it. I think this is just too big of a change for them. This kind of little angled room here. So let me keep going. This is, let's see. This is, yeah, this is essentially the final scheme. They actually asked me if we could just bump out the kitchen all the way to align with the rest of the house. And actually, maybe somebody who's listening or watching can tell me. I know in Oakland there's a rule that you can't have a continuous plane along the sidewall of the house. I just don't know if that's the case in Berkeley. If it is, I think we can do a little inset here to give a little bit of planar relief, if you want to call it.
That makes such a huge difference in.
What's that? Yeah. Well, you gotta satisfy the planners. They like the big gym. They like this idea of moving the opening in their master bedroom. This is the final scheme for the kitchen. She liked the office. The only thing that's a little bit up in the air is this. This is still kind of a little bit TBD. We've been doing some back and forth with this this area here, the washer dryer and pantry. Let me go back to the model really quick. and show you the final design. One thing I wanted to say about this that I've been pleasantly surprised by is that there's something about the scale of the proposal that I feel really comfortable with. It's a relatively small, the additions are relatively small, and I feel like it's appropriate to the house. I feel like the language of, you know, it's obviously it's not a traditional house, it's not a pitched roof house, it's not a bungalow. And I feel like the language of what I've tried to work out here fits with the house fairly well. And I'm just looking forward to seeing if it feels nice when it's built. So here's her little office addition. This whole space has been filled in here. And then this is the little gym addition. And we're actually leaving the entire roof here. So part of the ceiling of the addition, the gym addition will be vaulted ceiling here, but part of it will be a level ceiling at the existing ceiling level. And then let me show you where the drawings stand now. This is a set that I created that's kind of dialogue with the owners. All the demolished conditions are in red. Obviously, it's a single-story house, so there's just one plan. Elevations. And here you can see I'm kind of trying to leverage more of the tools that are available on various programs. So there's some dialogue here that I used, and the owners kind of we did some back and forth. So, you know, Ellen's questions are here, you know, you hover over this various stuff and it, you know, it shows you the conversation that you're having with the other people looking at it. And then elevations. And then I had another set. This is the set that I'm using for dialogue with the structural engineer. I sent him the set and I had some things that I wanted to point out to him. And he has just now developed his first pass of structural design for the project. Ooh. And that's where that project is. Maybe I'll take a little pause because my mouth is dry. Any questions so far?
Just one on this, I guess it's the north pop up there in the
Yeah.
addition.
Yeah.
You're gonna look to get any third stories in there? Skylights.
Here or here in the back?
In the elevated portion, the middle of the.
Oh, in the middle portion. You know, I didn't think about that. That's not a bad idea though. I will now think about that. This side is closet, so I don't know if it's worth it, but this side is bathroom. So that might be an interesting idea I would have to look at that section and see, you know, does the roof need to be a little higher?
With that bathroom, one thing I find that adds a lot to a bathroom is natural light, and so you lost the wall there. But you can put a big ventilating skylight, you know, in a place like that, and you can solve the ventilation problem, the lighting problem with one move.
Yeah. It's a good idea. Are there any questions on Zoom sitting?
Yeah, what happens with the existing bathroom? Is that getting a skylight or something?
It already has a skylight, Kristen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's existing.
So I have a real nuts and bolts sort of question.
Sure.
How do you structure your fee proposals so that you can do all these different schemes and feel comfortable?
You know, so that's a great question, Claudia. So I pretty much know at this point in my practice how long it takes for me to come up with the initial round of schematic design, and I'll provide an estimate. All my contracts are hourly, but I provide an estimate where I can, and you know, the first round of schematic design is usually anywhere between 15 and 20 hours. And then I sit down with them, you know, ideally in person, but more often by Zoom. And then revisions are really just kind of running, you know, I'll say something like, well, at the minimum, usually it's like 5 hours, but it's as much as you want, essentially, and people seem to be okay with that.
And then when you get to the construction documents, you set a, like an upset maximum or some
You know,
sort of budget goal?
You know, I don't think I've ever set like a not to exceed number. I usually tell people it's somewhat related to construction cost. You know, it's all, you know, it's all estimates, and mostly it's served me fine. You know, I think nowadays, you know, prices are even more crazy with the pandemic, but I think people usually understand they're biting off a big thing that they want to do. It's pretty rare that I have people. It's pretty rare that I run way over my estimates. You know, sometimes I basically do estimate a total number of hours for the project, not all of which I share with the client. And it's much more often I leave money on the table, which bothers me. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you hire an engineer?
Oh, that's a good question.
Am I in contract with the engineer, or do I connect the owners with the engineer?
No, are you in contract with?
No, I'm not. I have the engineer sign write a separate contract with the owners.
Is that ever a problem? I'll say that my approach is the opposite. I hire the consultants who do things that end up in the drawing set that I file. And the reason is, this may seem silly, but I want them beholden to me, not the owner, and I want them to answer their phone when I call.
And this is a very, maybe a personal question, but do you mark up the fee?
I do.
Yeah.
We're not supposed to discuss those technical details that AI.
That's where I get in trouble.
Hey, that's sued one time, there was strangler, and all that stuff, but yes, I do.
Okay.
And I tell people about that in my contract.
Yeah, I've just never, I don't see any, I don't have anything against that, Donald. I've just never done it that way. I think when I was starting my practice, you know, there's always like a lot of conversation about liability. And I think I was just afraid that, you know, running it through me exposes me to more liability. I don't know if that's really true or not, but.
I think your insurance goes up too. If you're running the consultant fees, insurance.
Yeah, yeah.
I do something weird though. I mean, I do all the structural drawings. And so, yeah, I need them to really be on board with me.
Yeah.
And I do that because I combine the architectural and structural information. So I don't get one guy out here doing one thing and me over here doing one thing and the guy in the field saying,
yeah, right. How am I doing in time?
We're doing fine. It's 10 to 1.
Okay.
I just have one question, Andrew, on your, I'm just interested in the how you present your work to your clients a little bit.
Yeah.
On one scheme where you showed the addition off to the lower left, for the views in the office is kind of different from all the others. It wasn't like a orthogonal, addition. Is that something you also then typically present with some 3D or some elevation drawings to help them understand that?
I do.
Or do you do that with the other schemes, or do you just kind of stay in?
I do it where I think like three-dimensionally it's interesting or important for them to kind of see, a 3D model. And unfortunately, I think I kind of archived but I did show them some three-dimensional views of this scheme to help them visualize it. And actually I'll show some 3D views of the second project. Yeah. Okay, so second project is the Oakland project. This is it's on Harvard Drive. Mountain View Cemetery is off to the lower left here. So just to point you, this is direct. Basically, this photograph is by the compass point, so north is up. Let's see if I can. Again, started with a conversation. These folks came to me through the website. Interestingly, we started with a Zoom call, not a phone call. So I was looking at these folks when we were talking for the first time, which was fine. I added a couple notes here. This is sort of like the human element. They have 2 kids that are basically in the process of leaving home. And they said that they're in the house for possibly another 5 or 10 years. And my thought was, that's not a lot of time. You want to undertake this big project, but they do. The other thing that I noted here is that I think I'm in trouble with this project because I may have set their expectations too low as far as what the construction cost is going to be, which I still haven't figured out a way to avoid getting into trouble sometimes with that. They did, even I think this is in the conversation, they appreciated some things that I said in my kind of elevator speech about, my approach as a designer, which was nice. Whoops. But yeah. So let me go to the photographs. Let's see. So we this started back in April, I believe. Before I start talking about more of the house, we had a meeting. We had a follow-up meeting in their dining room after the Zoom meeting, and it was really just to have a second conversation. And I think I brought my laptop and I showed them some more things. And the wife in particular is one of those people who there's something about her facial expression where you're talking with her and you're thinking she is not buying a single thing I'm saying. And you kind of progressively get more nervous and more like a fraud. And by the time I walked out of there, I was like, there's no way in hell I'm getting that project. Oh, well, as he come, as he go. And sure enough, like 2 days later, they emailed me and said, we liked your presentation. And we decided, why wait? We'd like to hire you. And I'm like, wow, okay. And since then, I've just realized she's one of these people that she has this facial expression where she's kind of slow to kind of jump on board with things. And she's kind of thinking about what you're saying very, very critically. And like, she's not like all excited and blah, blah, blah. And she's actually a very nice person. But it was just interesting, the kind of the human element of what we do is like constantly, just when I feel like, I've seen so many different houses, so many different families, and then you have another experience and you're like, oh my God. So this is their house. You can see there's a lot of topography here. There's a lot of vegetation in their front yard. This is the side, this is the side of the house. There's actually a retaining wall beyond this hedge, and then the surface of their yard is anywhere from 3 feet to as much as 6 or 7 feet below the top of the wall down here. Their entry hall, which they complain is too dark, so I'm supposed to do something about that. This is their living room, which is actually not part of the project, but I wanted to include it just because one of the interesting things about this house is that the rooms are very generously sized. It's just, I walked into this living room and thought, wow, this is a very nice room. And the other thing that struck me about the house is that by the time I was done walking through it, I really felt like a family has lived in this house. Like there are just so many interesting things to look at, interesting pieces of furniture, interesting things on the wall. I've got like a rack of postcards here. I don't know why that's there, but I really felt like the personality of this family was very evident in this house, as opposed to some houses which are kind of decorated in sort of a generic way, or like the way that people think they're supposed to decorate their homes. This was not like that at all. This is the breakfast room off the kitchen, which you can see it's quite messy. I think because their kids are out of the house now, now things are stacked on the table. They used to have breakfast on stuff. My point and shoot camera finally died in the middle of taking pictures of this house. So that's why there's a pink stripe there. But this is their kitchen. A couple views of their kitchen. This is the downstairs family room, which obviously is very dark and kind of like, whoa, that's a lot of wood siding. But again, it felt like, whoa, the family has lived here. You know, I walk into this room and I just imagine a lot of fun family memories of their kids growing up and having friends over. And there's a bar here, which there's a picture of the bar. I just thought, oh, this is really an interesting house. This is downstairs hallway. This is the crawl space under the garage, which is access. It's basically right beyond this wall here. Laundry room, kind of partially finished room. Downstairs bathroom. You can see there's a battered wall here, which is probably enclosing the foundation, the stem wall. Jumping upstairs to the second floor, this is the hall bathroom where the kids' bathroom, and then a couple shots of the master bath, which is kind of vintage, you can see, and then the master bedroom beyond through that doorway. This is an exterior shot. Here's that retaining wall I mentioned. Here, surprisingly, this is a cantilevered volume, and this is part of the breakfast room that you saw. The kitchen is behind this wall. And this is the other back corner of the house looking up towards the driveway and the street. This is the back corner of the house here. I didn't talk about the program. The program for this project is quite large. It's renovating the kitchen, full renovation of the kitchen. And they talked about expanding it because it's quite small. And renovating every bathroom in the house. There's 4 bathrooms in the house. One on the ground floor, the basement level, 1 on the main floor, and 2 upstairs. And the idea with the ground floor, the basement, is that they want to turn it into an ADU. So it's quite a big scope of work, which is nice. Lots of stuff to work on. Let's see. So going back to here is, let's see. I'm actually, yeah. So I'm trying to use more online tools. These are Pinterest boards that I asked them to start creating. So this is a snapshot of their board for the kitchen. I find this to be nice. You can start seeing what their tastes are, colors and storage ideas. I found this board to be really interesting. This is the board that they put together for the hall bathroom on the main floor, which is a tiny little bathroom, but look at those, I actually kind of appreciate this, like, oh, they want to kind of, go crazy with one room. So I like that. Let's see. So let's see. So where are we here? Okay, so these are the existing plans. Again, this is the result of me doing site measurements and then building the model in SketchUp. This is the lower level. This is that big wood paneled room. Here's the laundry room, crawl space below the garage, little bathroom, side entrance from the side of the yard. It's technically a bedroom, but it's just filled with junk right now. And here's the bar. Main floor, garage here. Here's the front door, entry hall, breakfast room with that little cantilevered condition here. Kitchen, dining room, the nice big living room. Here's the hall bathroom that they wanted all that crazy wallpaper in. I circled a couple of things that are, that kind of jumped out at me. This is obviously not a good condition here dimensionally. It's a very tight room. And then here in the kitchen, this little bump out here to me is a real bummer because you have to have some kind of little jog and whatever's going on in the kitchen, which they do. This is a very shallow hall closet and their ovens are here. And it's just like, oh, that's a bummer. And then second floor, the only thing we're addressing is here at this corner. Here's the stair from the main floor, hallway, and back-to-back bathrooms. Here's the hall bathroom. Here's the master bath. The hall bathroom interestingly has a separate shower and tub, which to me is kind of strange. And their kids are leaving the house, so why wouldn't you want to just combine these two functions? But for whatever reason, they want to keep it. So I was like, okay. And you can see this master bath, it's not great, you know, there's kind of a lot of open plan space here, which is kind of wasted. So those are some of the things I think about as I start kind of looking at the plan. So let's see. I guess, yeah. Again, I'm trying to be better about not diving into design right away. I have an impulse of like wanting to start sketching right away. Once I get the plans into my computer, you know, I feel like I don't spend enough time really kind of understanding what the clients want, trying to draw stuff out of them. So I have this dialogue, which is actually a Google Doc, and I just printed it out with some dialogue that I had with the owners. Deanna, the wife's name is, she put together like what I call like a brain dump document of all the things they're thinking about. I reorganized it into a bullet point list, and then we had a little bit of a dialogue with some questions back and forth, which I think is good. And then, you know, you get into design, and then you kind of leave all that behind because you're thinking about, oh, all this technical stuff of construction and codes, and you know, starting to think about, okay, getting a planning approval and all this stuff, and you forget about all that design stuff. And I'm trying to figure out if there's a better process for that. So again, like the first project, this kind of lends itself to attacking the scope of work in parts, and it's very much mix and match. So I'm going to go through these a little bit faster just because I'm getting tired. Kitchen scheme, the first scheme, again, usually my clients have an idea of what they want, and I always think, well, unless it's absolutely ridiculous, I'm going to see if I can make it work. And so this is essentially what they had in mind. I kind of smoothed out this little jog here, and basically said, hey, you know, this is a galley kitchen. I'll give you some space on this side of this wall for, like, you know, built-in seating or storage in the hallway. There's space for here for an appliance garage behind the counter. And then breakfast nook, you know, standard work condition pantry. More and more often I do like a clean sketch like this, which is just, again, trace paper laid over a CAD plot. And they'll do a second drawing that has explanatory notes on it. So they can look at both images. They can look at the clean image without all the distraction of this text and the notes and the dimensions and stuff. And then they can go back to this image and see some of the things that I'm explaining to them, like, hey, here's an option, or here's something to think about, or hey, is this dimension gonna be comfortable for you? That kind of thing. Whoops. Second scheme, this is kind of switching the location of the kitchen. This, to me, this plan is more conducive to a good kitchen than this area. So I tried switching the two. And you can see how it lays out. You know, there's pros and cons to this. It's kind of a little bit of an abrupt transition from the entry hall to the kitchen. But, you know, it's pretty functional, good counter space. You have a nice place for a breakfast nook here. I should say they asked for a little deck off the kitchen. So here's the deck here. In the first scheme, the deck access would be here. In the second scheme, the access would be here. Notes to the scheme. And then finally, they asked for a scheme that showed a little addition. And then this is essentially what they had in mind, and it works fine. So that gives you room for an island. The sink essentially stays where it is, and it just moves from here to here. You have space for a nice breakfast area with a built-in bench, pantry cabinet, refrigerator here. Last summer, I had a college student working for me briefly, very nice young man who goes to school at San Luis Obispo. And these notes were directions to him to develop this model, which he did reasonably well. Schemes for the lower level. This is my first scheme to create an ADU out of that ground floor plan. So you can see here's the existing wall of that family room, which we showed to be showed demolished. What I thought could either be a full or a partial height wall to separate the sleeping area from the living area. The bar becomes the kitchen, and the bathroom stays where it is. So you save money on moving plumbing. I thought this would be kind of an open space because if you close this off, it's quite a small bedroom. So I thought, oh, maybe there's a curtain here. It's basically a studio. The second scheme shows essentially a full bedroom, although again, it's quite small, moving the bathroom from here to here, keeping the existing entry door and having like a little hallway here, and then a kind of open plan living area. In both of these schemes, the entry would remain. I think I was kind of holding this as a item to be discussed of these French doors, which are existing. And that became a little bit of a revision later on. Family room, this stays part of the house. So here's the stairs down from the main floor. The dividing line between the ADU and the house proper would be here. So the ADU happens on this side. This becomes family room. Quite a bit of demolition here, which the initial feedback from the engineer is like, this is always relatively doable. And I always try to show a furniture plan to make things more real, to give people a sense of scale. So this shows a sectional with a large screen TV, you know, maybe like a little game table or a card table or whatever they want to put here. And then this big space for mechanical and storage. A slightly different arrangement here, oops, with a different floor, furniture plan, smaller space for mechanical and storage. Let's see. Second floor bathroom schemes. Here's the first scheme. Again, keeping both functions in the hall bath, both a tub and a shower, rearranging the plumbing in the master bath, moving the linen closet from here to here. So you're basically kind of grabbing this little space here for the hall bath. Explanatory notes. Second scheme. The linen closet gets a lot smaller. The bathing function of the master bath basically stays the same. I move the toilet in the hall bath from here to here, so this becomes much more of a standard arrangement, and the shower gets moved down, and then they get a little kind of semi-private space for the loo. Some notes, and then a third scheme, which I thought was kind of interesting. I kind of like this. I'm not sure what it really gets you functionally, but I thought, oh, this is kind of an interesting plan. Notes. I always include a little narrative along with schematic design that may explain some things that didn't get into the drawings. Nice dialogue with them. They gave me a lot of nice feedback. This is kind of our email thread. They actually asked for a copy of the SketchUp model because they wanted to try and navigate around the SketchUp model if they could. So I said, sure, you can take a look at it. Some revision work in response to questions they had, some design developments. Some, you know, the drawings becoming more concrete. more dialogue in response to questions, more iterations. Kind of zooming through this now. Changes to the ADU plan. They asked for some other little design touches in the house. They asked for like a built-in bench in the master bedroom. So I did a little rendering for that. They asked for opening up the stair to let more light through. So I actually did one of those things that you see in projects that are published of like an open stair kind of concept, which they didn't go for. And then this is where the drawings stand now. This is essentially a set that's ready for planning submittal. You know, I think these drawings look pretty nice. People are, you know, partisan about their CAD platforms, whether it's AutoCAD or Revit or Vectorworks or whatever. But I think these drawings, there's a lot of kind of workarounds to get this to look like this. But in the end, I think it looks okay. Demolition plans, construction plans, and elevations existing and demo. I think the planning department will be okay seeing it just like this. And I'll show you the model really quickly. Here's the model for this house. Again, kind of developed to the same level as the first project. You can see here's the retaining condition, again, rendered very crudely. There's not really that much happening with this project from the exterior, but that's the existing conditions. And that's the new condition there with the kitchen addition. And I think that's all I'll show for the visuals. Maybe I'll just stop there. I'm tired of talking.
Maybe there are questions that people have.
Yeah.
Or comments.
Happy to take questions. Happy to have discussion.
Any hands up on the?
No, all the chat is just like positive comments, feedback.
A couple of things that you said that I thought were interesting personally about how you presented yourself in the very beginning to the client. A couple of things struck me. One, you said that 50% of your work is coming by people looking at your website. I'm wondering, is that typical these days or is that unusual?
It's not typical for me, but I haven't done that optimization where my name comes up at the top of the list or any of that stuff. I have a real basic website. They tend to look at it after they've met me.
Anybody else want to share their thoughts on it?
Can you show us your website?
Happy to.
How do they find your website?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. Let's see.
I think that the other thing that struck me about how you present yourself initially was you said that on some of your clients, your first meeting is by Zoom.
Yes.
And I've done that a bit now too. And there weren't many good things that came out of COVID, but I would put that one in the good thing that came out of COVID category. It's a very, it works pretty good.
Yeah.
It's very time efficient.
Yeah.
Your ability to call up your drawings and share them with them, and get their feedback and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I agree. I think in a perfect world, I would still be meeting in person more often because I think the longer I do this, the one thing I'm appreciating more and more is being able to have trace paper and a pencil in front of me while we're talking. Because I think people really enjoy that process and they enjoy seeing things happening in front of them. And it's just more time efficient as opposed to going back and forth. I mean, yes, you can do things while you're talking on Zoom, but actually drawing on Zoom, unless you've got a camera focused on your desk or something, or you're like more tech savvy than me, and you can actually make edits on the fly to however you're doing your design work while you're on Zoom. I still think it's great to be sitting at someone's dining table with trace paper and pens and pencils. And they say, well, can we do this? And you throw a piece of trace over your drawing and you start sketching. And I'm facile enough with that I think people feel like I get positive feedback about that process when I get a chance to do it.
I also got the impression from what you said that you recognize the importance on the initial contacts of efficiently deciding whether or not this is a project that you should be working on, or this is a couple of people that you should be working with.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a common problem, it's hard to say no, you want to be helpful to people. This being January, I've realized that I really need to resolve to say yes less often. I think I have a perennial problem of feeling like I'm overcommitted, and the result of that is that the quality of my work is not really what I want it to be, and I don't spend as much time on the design, literally the design, helping with finishes and fixtures, and really kind of drilling down to the details of like, how does this particular place work in your kitchen? It becomes like, oh, no, let's get this set out. And as I mentioned before, Claudia, I'm often leaving money. It's not like necessarily that the owners are aware of it, but I know that I'm leaving fee on the table, at least my sense of what an appropriate fee would be for the project. And that's one thing that I'm not good about in my practice, is going back and looking at lessons learned after a project's over and thinking about, well, how could I have structured that differently, slowed down, and realize like, no, you can and should design more and not feel bad about billing your clients more. And so I'm really wanting to say no more often, and really have maybe half or 2/3 of the number of active projects on my desk that I usually do.
Another thing that I found striking about your presentation was the pictures you showed of the houses, all the rooms before you started the work.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that just drove home the realization that the work like you're doing, and that I think a lot of us are doing, it's very personal.
Oh,
I mean, you know more about these people than their neighbors do.
yeah.
And so the compatibility, the personal compatibility between the architect and the client is really key to the success of the project. And it would be natural to think that, well, not every client is the one that I should be personally working with because of who I am.
Yep, that's absolutely right. And I still feel like I'm learning that, with every new project and every meeting I have. I'm still learning to kind of pay attention to what the signals are, and, setting my bar a little bit higher as far as like, am I enjoying talking to these people? Are they hearing me well? Do they seem like they have some appreciation of what the design process is, or any appreciation? So that's, the human part of it is always interesting.
Well, also that sketching in front of them, it's a really personal experience.
Yeah.
I think they do appreciate that.
Absolutely. I think, that's another thing that I'm kind of constantly like thinking about is, all these computerized tools that we have now, but there's still a big part of me that wishes that we were all still drawing on paper. I'm of the age when I never drafted by hand in a professional office. I drafted in school, but I never drafted by hand in an office. And I really kind of wish I had that experience, because to me, that's just much more conducive to thinking at a good pace about what you're drawing, as opposed to like, you click a button and all of a sudden all these lines appear. And you're not really, and you're not thinking about what those lines represent. And there's all this kind of interface between you and what's on the screen or on the piece of paper. How do I manipulate this, with this tool and this menu and this palette? Whereas if you're holding a pencil, that's the tool. So I'm the age I am, but I'm like old school in that sense.
So you print out like the files and then take them with you and then draw them and you get them into a PDF by scanning? Is that how you?
Yes.
Come back in?
That's right. Yep. This is my website. This is just the featured projects I have in this.
That looks like testimonials too that you.
I do, yeah. I mean, I'm not so good about like updating this. There's quite a few. There's a couple that are new, but a lot of them are quite old. And this is a fairly basic website, but
How much time do you spend on your website?
Like zero amount of time, except for every couple of years when I've accumulated some more projects to give to my designer to put on the
So
website.
you don't manage the website yourself?
I do not.
Someone manages for you.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and the contact page is just all the way at the bottom. So, and this is how I get, again, probably at least 50% of my work nowadays.
I think that's kind of interesting in the sense that when I first went out on my own in 1989, I read about marketing. What am I going to do? And there were some books that I read called Guerrilla Marketing, which the guy that was writing about it, the point he was making was, don't waste your time marketing to the people who are not going to hire you. Find out what kind of people will hire you and devise a marketing program that appeals to those people. So that includes finding out, where did those people go? What did they read? And all that kind of stuff. And at that stage, it was trying to get people who don't know you interested in you. And your website is really good for that. And the funny thing about me is I got to the point where I didn't want to approach people like that. I only wanted to approach people who knew a little bit about me. Which, of course, that means I wasn't going to be famous.
The landing page had some sketches. I saw at the top. Is that typically how you come in?
Yeah, just the transitions between sections of the website. I just thought I needed some kind of interstitial images, and sometimes in the past I've done these nice three-dimensional drawings because I'm trying to either understand it for myself or convey it to a contractor, and I just scan some images, and I do some hand sketching in my free time. So
your sketches and watercolors are beautiful.
Oh, thank you very much.
And then you have different size projects as well, so people can see that it doesn't overwhelm them, but they just want, like you said, a small addition or
Right.
model, right?
Right, yeah, and that's been my practice. I mean, I've done some very small projects, and then I actually did one. This is the one ground up building that I've done. This is a little commercial building in Walnut Creek. I noticed there's one question from Sandia who just asked about whether I work with clients who do ask me to help them with finishes, and I often do. That's one part of my practice and my skills as a designer that I feel like is kind of my growing edge. I haven't really worked out a good process or a good workflow of like helping people make all those myriad decisions and countertops and tile and cabinetry and windows and all these different things. And it really varies from project to project, depending on what particular client or family wants, their kind of style. Are they have more of an adventurous DIY spirit, in which case that's fine, go crazy. I'll be happy to give you feedback. Things that are kind of either, if there's a code requirement as far as fixture flow rates or, light fixture, something, I'll let you know. Very rarely, I very rarely am ever making decisions for people, but sometimes I'll be more involved. I sometimes meet with people to help them shop. Meet with them at the tile store on 4th Street in Berkeley, or go to a window showroom. So.
Do you work with particular contractors?
I have a short list. Yeah, I'm always trying to grow it though, because people are falling off all the time for various reasons, and then I need some candidates to introduce the people, and I've only got 2 people. I need a third one, and who's good, and so I'm always trying to keep that replenished.
Do you ever learn from things that don't go well? Or does everything pretty much go well?
Never a problem, no, never a problem. I mean, things do go sideways. I actually just had this, I had a little bit of a problem with the current, well, he's not a current client in Berkeley, where we did a lot of work and he wound up not doing anything. And I mean, this is a problem that everybody has, but he wouldn't pay my final invoice. He had a couple of outstanding invoices. And it wasn't a huge amount of money, but it was money that he owed me. So I was like, not really willing to let it go. And we had a lot of back and forth about it. And, he had his perspective, I had my perspective. He was not an unreasonable guy. He was just not a very good client.
And when you look back on it,
Yeah.
Was there some sign that you realized afterward that you didn't see in the beginning that would have clued you that you should not have been doing that?
It's hard to say because we started design work in February of 2020. So I actually got into his house once before the shelter-in-place order went into effect. So the pandemic was like full swing when I was doing design. I wasn't able to get to the house that often. Communication was bad. Everybody was freaking out about what was happening. People were not focused. And not that it would have been, he was difficult in other ways. And I think if it was a normal, if the pandemic hadn't happened, there still would have been problems, but that exacerbated the difficulties. Hindsight's 2020. I mean, I can go back and think, yeah, I never felt like he was fully engaged in the process. We would have a Zoom and he wouldn't really be, he just had this energy of like, he's not really looking at the drawings. He's not really thinking about what I'm showing him. And that was a problem.
And with respect to the infrequent problem of not getting paid as you're supposed to.
Yeah.
Do you have a practice of billing on a regular basis? And do you have in your contract any note about the fact that if it's not paid within a certain time or there are 2 outstanding invoices that you've lost the work?
I do, but I hardly ever enforce them. And this particular guy was chronically tardy in paying me. So that was another warning sign. He sometimes had 2 outstanding invoices, not 1, that were late. And he seemed like a nice guy. He seemed like a nice guy. He's a single dad, he's got a lot on his plate, blah, blah, blah. But I should have invoked that language in my contract now.
What's that mean? Sorry.
Do you have most of your projects bid or do you work with the contractor?
It's very rarely do I do a formal kind of a quote unquote formal bidding process with like a specific bidding date and a deadline. It's more of I will introduce my clients to contractors and I will do my best to make sure they're all looking at the same drawings. And they all have the same information in front of them. They're all aware that other contractors are looking at the project. So it's a more of an informal, I don't have any kind of arrangement with like 1 or 2 contractors of like, hey, I'm going to bring you into this project and you're going to be the builder. I don't do that. So it's just how that's going.
A lot of times the contractors bring me into the project.
That's another way.
That's probably half of my work is contractors referring me, like someone calls them up. Hey, Tony, I want to remodel my kitchen. And he says, okay, you need to hire an architect.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another common route for me to Claudia. I'd say like 25% of my projects come to me from a contractor I know. Yeah.
I believe there are a couple of questions in chat.
In the chat?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Okay.
You read it out.
Oh, okay. Let's see. I can't pronounce this person's name. Ruitsu Wang. How do I produce as-built drawing? It's essentially using the CAD program that I showed you, SketchUp, and then SketchUp has a companion program called Layout. It's essentially the same as, just speaking AutoCAD terms, if you have a sheet file and you cut a viewport in a sheet file and you bring in the model, that's what layout does, with a SketchUp model. So that's how I do all my drawings, as built and construction drawings. How do I take care of the CA phase will help clients finding GCs? Yes, just kind of covered that. I do most often introduce my clients to some builders that I think may be good fits, whether it's because of personality or the kind of projects they do, or just availability, to be honest. I do like to be involved during construction. I strongly encourage my clients to keep me involved during construction. And usually they do. Linda says, I love seeing the process behind the development and the ease with which you present different options to give people choices. It makes for final scheme. Just complimentary. Thank you, Linda.
We're about at the end of our time.
Oh, okay.
Is Mercedes still on board?
Yes, I am.
Mercedes, you want to give a quick heads up on the February meeting?
Sure. I don't have the calendar in front of me, but the day that we have our February meeting, the topic will be working with a lighting designer. And a lighting designer that I work with, York Kennedy, based in Berkeley, will present on that process. And we're actually finalizing the details of it this week. But I think it should be really interesting, and obviously there'll be time for questions. And if anybody has particular questions or things they've struggled with lighting that they'd like to send me for him to address or incorporate into his presentation, feel free.
And then lastly, a round of applause for Andrew. Wonderful.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew.